Mr. Young, good morning. That's all. You look so serious.
You know, I'm just trying to.
As usual, Mike, we post internally first, and then if it's not filled, go external.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
There may be internal
Is
candidates.
this thing on? Yes.
You know.
I know there's some people who technically qualify, whether they want the job or not is a different case. Being that it's involved a lot of testifying before tribunals, there's a lot of appraisers who won't do that.
Well, we're lucky with. Got experience.
All right, we're about to get started. Did everyone sign up to speak? Who wishes to speak today? We're keeping things a little tight, so if you're not on the list. Month?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Sturgis, are you ready?
Like sit down.
All right, the time being 9:01 a.m. on June 22nd, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order of Kane County's Public Service Committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Gums, Lewis, Surgis,
Here.
Tepe,
Be here.
Williams,
Williams here.
Young,
Young here.
Sanchez.
Sanchez present.
You have a quorum in the room.
Okay, if I could have approval of the minutes for May 31st, 2023, unanimous consent or otherwise.
Deputy requests unanimous consent for approval of the minutes.
Any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Public comment. I know we have some speakers signed up. Just before we do start that, we're keeping things tight today, but we don't have many speakers signed up, so I think we'll have plenty of time to get to everyone. There will be 2 resolutions on next month's agenda that will be covering the issues that we've been talking about the past few months. Mr. Young here has been very instrumental in putting those resolutions together, working with the state's attorney and other stakeholders here at the county to make them good resolutions that will come before us next month. There was just some last minute changes that needed to be made, and unfortunately they weren't able to make it on this month's agenda. So that being said, you can look forward to that coming next month and have lively conversation regarding those issues. So from here, we're going to go into public comment, and I'll take first.
Chairman Sanchez, question.
Oh yeah, Mr. Sturgis.
Is there a reason that we have to wait a full month on those resolutions? Could they be leapfrogged to another committee or gone directly to executive?
No.
Do they need to be
They-
birthed here?
There were some revisions and changes that were made kind of last minute, working with Madam Chair's office. So I think with the holiday, there was some hours lost there. An alternative path would be to ask her to put them on executive. We could do that.
I
To
would be,
just,
I
to
mean,
just move
again,
on the
I,
issue this
that
month.
might be unorthodox, but I would be willing to fast track that maybe a little bit.
Okay, yeah, it's something we've done before for other issues when necessary. So I think that's just something we would have to approach Madam Chair.
And
about.
again, I'm not trying to leapfrog anybody's voice on this committee, but
Right. No, I understand. And that would be up to,
we seem to
Her
be getting
discretion.
very good at dragging things out. So.
I second that.
all right. So we'll move on to our public speakers, Ms. Debbie Kanarowski.
Thanks, Cliff.
Good morning. I appreciate your comments, Cliff, because I agree with you. And that's exactly what I was going to talk about, that it's hard to believe that since February, we are still in the same place with the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. When I spoke was made with the Kane County, and guess what? The agreement is still with the Kane County Board. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue just with the board in general, because obviously it's not supposed to be written with the Kane County Board. I understand that this resolution has to be voted on, but certainly pushing it to the executive board as suggested, if you could vote on that, we'd greatly appreciate that to get this moving, because it is time to make sure that we move forward with this. It also in your discussion, I'm hoping that as it's discussed today, that each of you on the committee will make a statement as to where you stand with this as far as moving this forward. I understand that you all have a copy of the resolution or resolutions, plural. So I'm hoping that you will each make a statement on how, what your opinion is on this, so that we can make sure that it does in fact move forward. As a taxpayer and citizen, I'm just disappointed that it continues to drag on, just another delay. As a follow-up to the presentation that the state's attorney made at the special meeting, it's disgraceful that the clerk is not responding. And I see there's a representative here. It's at some point we response to all questions that are made at the special meeting. This should not be dropped. We are due answers. And whether the clerk feels that this is not important to him or that he doesn't care about what the citizens think, I do think we do deserve, and we will continue to put pressure on to get answers to those questions. He continues at this meeting to have Brian Pollock proudly state the number of passports sold. Those aren't the real questions that we're asking. We want the answers to about the USB and several others. So we're hoping that he does come to terms with and that he becomes accountable. They were not transparent, obviously. The state's attorney to bring the clerk's office to provide transparency to what exactly happened, and that's unacceptable. So we hope that you will also consider the budget as you review the budget, that again, that $2 million, once this agreement is resolved, that the $2 million is reduced from the clerk's budget. As I said before, transparency is not provided in the U.S. Alliance for Excellence. We are once again asking for you to give back the money and have fair and transparent elections. Thank you.
Next up, Denny Seiler.
Hi, my name is Denny Seiler. I live in Elgin. I recently began coming to these meetings hoping I could make a difference for Christian conservatives who love America, but I may have been wrong. I am somewhat new to this and thought you as a board were of elected officials are here to represent we the people. I may have been wrong about that also. I believe you all took an oath to uphold the Constitution and to serve us. What I have seen so far looks like a blatant attempt to stonewall, put off, not answer questions, and to show no effort to addressing the issues that we are here to address. Being we have been here many times, even placed on the agenda where we could ask questions of you. Please remember you are, which is to serve the people who put you here in office and fulfill this duty. It is essential that we have secure voting systems and we can trust with confidence. Kane County should strive to implement measures to guarantee the integrity of the voting process, which includes voter identification, tamper-proof ballot storage, and comprehensive audits to verify the result. What I would like to know is how we're going to get the answers to the questions we have already asked for weeks now. And more importantly, how we're going to get answers to the questions concerning the elections, knowing I messed up there, how we're going to. The last time we were here, you knew exactly what we were going to talk about, but there was no one here to answer any of the questions. Some of the questions were asked that day for the chain of custody. You know, who touches the thumb drives? Where do they go? How many times do people touch them during the whole process? Are they formatted? And who is in the room with them? Who has the authority to receive money from the alliance? Who has the authority to decide whether or not to keep the money, being there was no one there at that time to answer those questions. Jamie told us she would get back with us with answers. So far, we've heard nothing. From what I understand, that will not happen because we can only address you now, and you are not going to address us anymore. So I would like to know how it's possible to rectify this so that we could have more confidence in our board.
Michelle Betag.
Hi, Michelle Bettak, St. Charles. Not much to say, what hasn't been said. Two topics here. One is the award from the Alliance, and one is the election itself. And we're just sticking with the consolidated. We all have concerns about the two previous before that. One thing that's upsetting to us is, you know, an elected official, Jamie, she's representing the elected officials or the board. Now she's just representing Jack, I believe. Ken Shepro, I'm not sure who he's representing. I think the board, but who is representing us? We pay so much taxes, and are we supposed to go hire an attorney to represent us? It's so not fair. It's not, you know, it's not clear to us who's representing, who's the voice. I'm grateful, honestly, to have come here to start this process. It's exhausting. And I mean, I'm sure that's part of the, you know, game, keep delaying. It's exhausting, but 2024 is coming up. And honestly, people will be involved. People are talking on the streets. I mean, our community does not trust our elections. And the bigger, the closer we get to them, the more we get, you know, activated more. Anyway, I'm grateful because I would like to see this go to a vote. I just want to see what board members are willing to stand up for the people. I mean, back in the day, there's Republicans, there's Democrats. You know, if we were jumping on a Republican clerk, and in the past, the Democrats would have been all over it. Yay, good. It's like uniparty. Everyone's on the same, you know, side, and except for us, we're working against everyone else. So in the past May 31st meeting, we had Jamie, who was going to get back to us with several answers. Jarrett, you had said you would give us a few answers back. Roger, Raymond, they were going to give us some answers back. When I would like to know, like, when we will get some of those answers. Mr. Pollack was going to give us answers. He never does. And it's revealing, like everything is revealing, you know, just about how little you consider the public's opinion. And I think it's a great idea that Debbie had to see who at this meeting will support this going through to the main board, because that's what our main goal here is, to see at the end, the whole board, where they will vote. So we can make our vote count in 24 when all of the even districts are up for re-election. And also just, we aren't going to finish this by having the same machines do the same job. We'll keep coming back. We want hand counted paper ballots. DuPage County did them. We want to do them. That's what we want. Thank you.
Next speaker, Terry Bauer.
Good morning. My name is Terry Bauer, and I've been a resident of Kane County for over 35 years. I have serious concerns about the upcoming 2024 elections. Will these elections be fair? According to Rasmussen polls, at least 56% of likely voters all across the country believe that cheating affected the outcome of the 2020 election, and more than half of all likely voters, or about 60%, believe that cheating affected the results of the 2022 election. So more than half of all likely voters across the country now believe that the big lie is what is the big lie. Political parties have changed, and we are no longer Democrats and Republicans. Republicans are morphing into more of a blue collar and middle class, working class, America First type of party. And the new Democratic Party is really the Marxist Democratic Party of elites and globalists. Our political parties have switched places. The Republicans now represent the working class, and the Democrats represent the globalist elites. But it really isn't that simple, because what we really have now is a party of freedom versus the party of the globalists. Which one will you decide to be a part of? Because you're going to have to make that decision. If you are looking for freedom, stick with the conservatives. Of course, Marxists will call conservatives fascists, but it is the Marxist Democrats that are the fascists, totalitarians, and the dictators, not the conservatives. They're just playing by the rule book, the rules for radicals. Marxists always project what they actually are onto their opponents. Sorry, communists, but we're on to you. And since voting machines are now synonymous with fraud, they're synonymous with fraud. Why would anyone trust our Kane County elections? The only reason for not showing ID is to increase the opportunity for fraud. The only reason to have 45 days for voting is because of cheating. The only reason to use ERIC, E-R-I-C, for our voter rolls, it's known to keep dead voters on the ballot, on the rolls, is to be open to more fraud. The only reason to push vote by mail, where once the envelope is removed and placed on a separate pile, there's no chain of custody on any of the ballots. The only reason for that is to be able to create more votes, to cheat. The only reason that we cannot audit Kane County elections is because of protecting the possible fraud. Every corporation across our country is audited on a regular basis. It's not just me that has really big concerns about the upcoming election cycle. Apparently, about 60% of all eligible voters across our country have the same concerns. Thank you.
And our last speaker for today, Mr. Mark Avalar.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee and elected officials, including County Clerk Jack Cunningham. Many times I have defended the clerk's office going back to April 22nd of 2021, when the mental health issues took place in his role as the tax extension officer. And listening to both in person and online, the discussions of what's happened with the elections administration, I'm here to offer solutions. That's what I do in my current work on the mental health board, and that's what I want to do now. And I'm going to present something here where maybe the time has come for a different approach to election administration for local election administration. I'm going to start with an example. Earlier this month, a congressional oversight hearing for the House Education and Workforce Committee for the Department of Labor with Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su took place on June 7th. Congressman Nathaniel Moran of Texas, who's a freshman who a year earlier was the elected Texas equivalent of an Illinois County Board Chair, questioned the acting labor secretary about her in-person evasion to many important questions asked by the congressional committee. Before yielding his time, Congressman Moran stated to the acting secretary, "I've heard a number of my colleagues ask a lot of questions today, and you've artfully avoided answering most of them." The June 7 oversight hearing revealed the acting labor secretary only appeared after a threat of a congressional subpoena. And then she did attend, although I should have been compelled. Turning to Kane County, I know you don't have subpoena powers, but there's been a lot of questions being asked of the elections administration at public meetings. And there has been a reluctance for either the clerk's office or election staff to be in person, to listen to the public, even if you can listen online. It means much more to be in person. So therefore, where Kane County Board's oversight is limited under the current setup, is it time to consider something new? Should we have a local election commission, a county election commission, which is permissible under the statute under Article 6A of the Illinois Election Code? And I asked the county's committee today to take some action to possibly head as an option. Let's look at all of our options. And if in the 2020s, it's time for Kane County to have a 3-member election commission where in public meetings, local election policy is discussed, maybe that's the direction to go. I would suggest making this effective on December the 1st, which is the start of your fiscal year, which gives you, the county board, plenty of due diligence to fully explore all this, not only from the administration, from a transition, as well as budgetary through the finance process. Is it time to transition to an election commission? Therefore, under agenda item number 12, other business, I ask that the 7 members of this committee consider taking a first step and have the state's attorney draft an ordinance compliant to Article 6A of the Election Code to, by ordinance, and have this set up for the July 20th, 2023 public service meeting. In closing, I'm going to cite Nathaniel Moran again, this time from a January 2021 news release as the elected county board chair in hiring an election administrator. He states, "There is nothing more important as a foundation of to our democracy and government, both locally and nationally, than the integrity of our elections. For almost 2 years now, improving elections administration in Smith County has been a focus of the Commissioner's Court. The hire is just another step in that process to strengthen the Smith County Elections Office and to build an elections team that is second to none in the state." I think everybody in this room would agree with that statement for Kane County. And there is a fundamental change that must happen going into the fiscal year 2024 on December 1st. I'm asking this committee to consider taking that action to draft the ordinance during other business as this first step. Let's think strategically, let's think long-term, let's think cooperatively, and this is nothing personal. It's strictly the best county business for the taxpayers' money. Thank you, and I'll be available on chat if somebody wants to chat, Zoom chat, any questions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sanchez.
Ms. Juby.
You cannot have conversations on chat with any of the board members because it would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
This is true. Yes. It's something we've gone over with our state's attorney recently. Sorry, sir.
I know I didn't get a chance to sign up. I was circumventing the fear. I wonder if there would be a chance that I could speak.
Sorry, but next month there will be 2 resolutions regarding these issues. Okay, we are moving on now to the rest of the agenda, our finance reports. Any questions on that? Now, I know there's a lot of interest in the county clerk's office today. Is there any objection to moving the county clerk's section next in the agenda? Any objection to that? Okay. Hearing no objection, then we will go to the county clerk. And I believe the county clerk is here today, Mr. County.
Beautiful day. Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here as usual. And
I'm here to solve a couple issues, and the first is, I wanted to thank these people who are coming out, with their objections and so on, because unless we know unless the problems are brought up to the county clerk, we cannot solve them. So out of all of this, we've gotten some very positive response. We know the areas that we need to work on. Mark, I agree with you that, as a matter of fact, to satisfy what Mark suggested, what I intend on doing is having a election advisory board that'll be made up of even some of you people who are objecting. The main thing that I've noticed here, we have a real problem with education of elected officials. What are their duties? Now, the duties of my office come out of the Constitution of the state of Illinois. And you remember, I'm not going to be dramatic, but I, John A. Cunningham, do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and provide the duties of Kane County Clerk to the best of my ability. And that's exactly what I'll do. The authority does rest with me out of Chapter 7. It's my decisions to make, not the county boards, and I shall make those decisions. I've heard your cries. I watched you pray outside of my office. Your prayers are going to be answered today partially because I intend to solve the problem of the problem with the contract itself, because as advised by the state's attorney's office, it had two interpretations. Therefore, what I'm doing today, I'm rescinding that contract. I'm returning the money. But no. Not because of misinformation and stuff that I've heard. I've listened to every one of you. I've been insulted personally. I've tried to do away with that. I'm objectively looking at these two issues. I've decided to do that because it's a legal question. Secondly, I do have the authority under Article 7 of the Constitution of the state of Illinois. I have the internal control statute. So I have the final authority of what's said. So what I am doing, I have a new contract here. You're going to boo me. I have a new contract that has been vetted that gives that authority to me, which answers Mr. One of our new board members who's rather young in the office here. Mr. Young, I have that authority and I intend to follow it. So I've decided, I've listened to every one of your things. I've known when some of you have gotten up and clapped, encouraged this people to be respectable, the operatives of this office. I've watched people get up and try to abuse the chairwoman. I've heard them say that you board members are part of a, well, in essence, it determines they called you whores. Now that doesn't do any good with me. So basically with me, you can't frighten me. I'm going to do my job, what's best for the people of this county. And that's, I'm signing the contract. They're going to read there. I'm going to get the $2 million, which is going to be used basically to fund police officers in schools. What we have elections, even though today they're talking about making holidays of all the elections, they will not. So there will be days when elections are held in schools. Because of Sandy Brook, I will have a police officer there. I'm going to increase the educational program of my office so some of you people will understand what's going on. A lot of you are listening to misinformation and malinformation. I've heard every one of you. I know that you're sincere. Ma'am, you can shake your head if you want, but it doesn't bother me. I know what the facts are and you don't. You've never run an election in your life. You haven't been in my office. You don't know what's going on. Most of you are, I've heard you people interpret the law. I have not seen any. I practiced law for 40 years in the state of Illinois. My background is I have a degree in political science and minor associate in psychology. Thank God the psychology portion of my education has helped me evaluate some of your activities, because I know what sociopaths are. I know when people are being indoctrinated, you're listening too much to CNN and you're listening too much, not to the news, but the news shows. Okay. So basically, my friend, that's not funny. I'm very serious about what's going on here. And I intend to run this office. Jack Cunningham's your clerk. 84,000 people disagree with you. They have voted me in office. I answered your questions. I had 42 pages of questions from the same group before we answered all those. The last page, ladies and gentlemen, is if you have any further questions, come to my office. Some of you have. We worked with you and we appreciate you. The only person I've heard here so far come up with something concrete is Mark Avalar. And I think at one time in our career, Mark, you were thinking of running for my office, if I remember that. So it's nice to have you on my side. There's nothing better to having, people say Democrats are bad, Republicans are bad. Politics is addition, not subtraction. Since these groups have gotten involved with this misinformation stuff, the Republican Party that you mentioned earlier is now the minority party. You've lost 30,000 people since 2020. Wake up.
look at the facts, make your decisions. Okay, I'm Jack Cunningham, your county clerk. I'm taking the money and I'm going to spend it, not dark money. I'm going to spend dark money, as you say, to put the light on what's going on in elections in Kane County. I'm going to educate my staff better. I found some, because of all this, I found some miscommunications. Basically, you took a small human error that we told you was a human error and elevated it high. Mark, as far as commission, I just want to share with you that basically the Aurora Election Commission's budget was $2 million. Since we've taken it off over, we're running that off for $178,000. So far we've saved, what you didn't know either, people who live in Elgin and anywhere in Kane County were paying for the Aurora Election Commission, because the state statutes say that the elections are the responsibility of the county, and consequently, we were subsidizing them based on the assessed value of the city of Aurora. So far, we saved $2,029,765.89 of your property tax money. Okay, and this is continuing. This year was $550,833.02. We have more important things to do in the clerk's office. We are going to be going back to paper ballots. It'll be as soon as, okay, you're going, no, really. We're going back to, this is not a place to applaud. Show the dignity to the people running these meetings, please. Don't applaud for me. Just listen, and if you agree, fine. If you don't, vote against me, okay? But I've enjoyed being your clerk. I've had the honor of 84,000 people tell me that last election that I basically, I'm doing a good job. I'm the second longest living, how long that lasts. I'm the second longest serving clerk in the history of Kane County. Charles Laurie was elected in 1917 and died in office in 1964. And I don't plan on running again. And number one, I'll take number two because I'll have to be 120 years old to get the first one. So I'll take that honor, and the honor of being elected, the youngest elected official in the state of Illinois, city of Aurora on city council. I've enjoyed my career. I'm educated in law. I've been president, chair of board of banks. I've been collected garbage in the back of trucks over my years. I've been a bartender and a truck driver. So I actually learned more in some of those instances than I did in some of the classes I sat in with some of my professors. But I'm here to serve you. I've tried to serve you well. The primary, I think I'm still running my primary because I'm still hearing the same false remarks that I heard at that particular time, misinformation, malinformation. We got to be careful. There are real people out there that want to destroy our country. The best thing that they can do to destroy it is knock down your faith in your elected process. So be careful that you're not aiding and abetting Russia and other people who are putting out the stuff that I'm hearing here today. We can work together. I plan on working with you. I appreciate in a sane way, in an adult way, if you want to come in with your problems, I'm glad to listen to them. But whether you like it or not, I'm the final authority on this issue. And the county board does not have under control of my office, and neither Mr. Zuckerberg, was that his name, Zuckerberg or Huckerberg, whatever his name is, Bill Gates or the Three-Headed Eagles or a small band of people are going to make me, we're going to run my office. I'm going to run it. If you don't like it, that's tough. It's what you elected, what the majority of people in this county elected, and I shall do my job to the best of my ability. With that, I thank you for your time. And if you, I always try to help, I did teach state and local government at Aurora University. And basically, I'm still open to some of you board members who are new, or let's say young in your operation, even though you get a bulldog account for a business. We basically have to work together. I'm here to work with you. You're welcome to come to my office. We'll try to explain the things that to the best of our ability. And most board members are good people. They're bright and they should be able to understand what their jobs are. So with that, I say thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. When I came in office, we were producing $640,000 on income. We now produce $1,600,000. I produce enough money in my office not to have to go to your property tax money. That's the biggest thing I try to do with other elected officials to protect property tax. But basically, every dollar I get and fees go to pay for our vital records department tax extension. elections are important, but there are other functions. For example, we've just, while else is going on, and one of the reasons I haven't been here to some meetings is we're extending taxes on 197,000 parcels of land. That's on the bottom of your tax bills. In case you don't know it, your township assessor puts a value on your property. He then gives that to Mr. Armstrong, who does we work as a team and does an excellent job. He then holds hearings and he certifies those values. And then my office calculates that all the taxing bodies come in and file their levies. And my office determines how much of your tax bill goes each one. Now, if we don't get that done in a timely manner, and Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Lawson and I work as a team on that. If we don't do that, governmental agencies will not have money to spend. They'll have to go to tax anticipation warrants, which then means that they will have to pay interest on that. So we do this, we think the tax extension is as important as the elections. And we take every aspect of our office to that effect. We also have, if you come to the office, you'll also see that we have every birth record, death record, and marriage license since 1836. When I came in office, they were batching them. They were batching them, and now they're kept on a daily basis. So when you come in, if someone dies in your family, basically we can pull up the death records within 10 minutes. We're proud of that. We do deserve excellence, and I don't deserve the excellence in my office, my employees do. And they've done a great job, and I don't like to see them put through what they're being put through now. Part of part of the reason I wanted this to continue on, to let you board members know the harassment that we put up in my office since 2020. So now you understand what we're going through, and maybe you'll be a little more understanding of the process and what we're doing. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would thank you. I will turn my report over to you for signature. Then I will say thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, but I think here I answered your questions. I've asked them the factual matter for my legal training. I've determined what the issues are. I identified them. I listened to your testimony. And I understand a lot of you really what's going on here. That's your right. I'll tell you right now, I'm probably not agreeing with what I'm doing. Part of it, you do some, I do some. Got 2 wins and 1 loss.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
Sign it, I'll take it with me
Yep.
and file it in my office.
Mr. Cunningham,
I watched you. You've been very fair with everyone.
Mr. Cunningham,
Democrat, I will.
Mr. Cunningham, you signed another agreement with the U.S. Alliance, you said?
Sorry?
You said you signed another agreement with the U.S. Alliance, a different
Yes.
one? When did that happen?
Just now.
In front of our faces?
Huh?
So it's the same group that everyone
I
was,
just signed. I didn't sign. That's not what I signed.
Okay.
So just for the record.
it was the same group that if you look at that 990 form that has the missing people on the 990 form, but it has the dollars. I mean, that's the same group, right?
Now signing the rescission.
Okay, give him. He needs.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Mr. Young. Now I am signing. Signing this as a Kane County clerk. It's already been vetted by the state's attorney's office. It's legal and it's binding. And thank you for reminding me to sign it.
You're welcome. There's still going to be the same questions that everyone has in this room about that 990 form. There's still questions about the U.S. Alliance and who they are. Are you ready to,
Questions about what?
who they are? Who is the U.S. Alliance backed by? If you look at the 990 form, there are no, they list no people. They list the dollar amount, but they don't list the people behind the dollar amount. Did you see that form? It was on one of our packets.
I have not received that form. And another gentleman came into the office.
If you could use the microphone, Mr. Cunningham.
I never saw.
Yeah.
Oh,
The microphone, please.
I usually don't need one. I needed you guys to talk to hear, but I really sometimes don't need to talk. Basically, I'm satisfied as a group of people that want to improve the elections. You can have your own conclusions on it. That's my conclusion as a county clerk. I worked and that worked. I was the president of the National Association of County Clerks and Recorders. I had over 600 election authorities that were under my organization. And I bring that experience.
Hold on, everybody.
I'm dealing with them the same way I did that, is to bring the best practices. Now in college, when you copy
Mr. Cunningham, could you use the microphone, please?
When you,
We're gonna have
college,
this
when you
conversation.
copy something that was plagiarizing, what we do is we share the best practices of one another. And we've done that in our office for years. As a matter of fact, last week, we had people from Minnesota because they think that much highly of our office. So basically, this money will be used for the betterment of elections. I don't care where it came from. It's green.
Bring the meeting back to order.
Look at this.
All right.
Isn't where it comes from. It's
Mr. Cunningham, thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. I think we can have follow-up outside of the meeting if anyone's
If you
interested.
have any further questions come out, Mr. Young, I'll be glad to explain them to you.
You just did. You just explained. it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll move on to the rest of our agenda. In the interest of time, Treasurer's Office, Mr. Lawson.
Mr. Lawson,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lawson, excuse me. That's going to be a very tough act to follow, by the way.
If you guys could,
Certainly agree.
can everyone please go out in the hallway, maybe close the doors so we can finish the rest of this meeting? Somebody get the shepherd's hook out.
Dr. Oliver brings me.
Hey, Treasurer Lawson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll be very brief. Well, I had some things to cover this morning. I understand how folks, all the folks in this room feel. You know, as important as doubling the, this pales in importance to what you've been dealing with. Let me just say that I submitted my report a week ago. We are, our top priority in our office is collecting and distributing $1.5 billion of property taxes to the taxing districts. There's 195,000 parcels. The first chart that is in our report shows a little bit less than half collected. That's only because of the timing. We work through after the rush on June 1st of people getting in their property taxes. There's about 7 to 10 days later that we have to work through all the processing. So, and at a different meeting, I'd like to share with you some of the experiences that as I listened in the office, during basically the month that we're collecting property taxes, a very hard thing for people to pay. Not only the goodness in the people who come forward to pay their taxes, make that sacrifice, but also from our staff who do an excellent job of treating people respectfully and as they would want to be treated. But I'm going to save those examples for a different meeting with your permission. Okay. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the Treasurer's Office?
Mr. Chair, I do have one quick
Ms.
question.
Combs?
How many are taking advantage of the online paying? How's that going?
It's going well. A little bit of an increase. It's not massive, but a little progress at it at each step. So it was about a 10% increase, 8 to 10% increase over the same thing last year to quantify it.
Good. I've gotten feedback from folks that really like that option, so.
Sure. Mr. Williams? Or go
No,
ahead.
I got just a quick comment. I used it for the first time. It was great, much easier than schlepping it up here and put it in the box. And so good job on that. Thank you.
Well, thanks. The folks in this room and my staff, I think everybody in the county knows that I'm about the slowest person when it comes to IT kinds of things. Even taped my first experience. It took me 8 minutes to go through. It'll be 4 minutes the next time. My point in the exercise was, my gosh, if I can do it, you know, anyone in the county can. And we're happy to be there to hold hands to assist. So thanks, Ray.
Mr. Sturgis?
I had shared the same thing with Chris. I thought it could not have been any easier than it was.
Mr. Young?
I have a question. I used it too. I thought it was great. To incentivize people to use it more, I guess my question to you is, does it save the county money when people use that? Is that can you quantify that for every person that uses it, you save $50 or $100? I guess, do you know?
In the future, I'll try to quantify it. I don't have an answer like that right now. It definitely is a savings. I don't know how much, but you think about save time in lines, just the avoidance of errors, all those kinds of things move us in the right direction. So yes, it's much more efficient, but I don't have a specific quantification.
And to further my comment, maybe it would be in the future, next year, you offer a discount, I don't know, $25 or any $50 or whatever to go online and to do that, to incentivize people if you know that you're going to get that money back. That's why I asked the question, if you knew exactly how much you were saving.
I understand. Thank you. I follow.
Mr. Sturgis?
I did have one, and this is kind of a blanketed comment, but I saw an email come through from Senator DeWitt saying there was maybe a joint effort regarding property taxes and understanding for seniors and exemptions and stuff like that was going on. And I had reached out to the senator saying I would be happy to host that up at the north end in the Dundee area. And I don't know who I included all in that email, but Don did respond saying, sure, we'll take it on the road. And so if Mark and Chris are both here in the room, I'm advocating that I would love for that to happen. And if there was any way to include, and Mark, I've said this before, if there was any way to include the small business owners that are out there that are having trouble understanding what their property tax bills are and how they're put together, I would love to host that seminar if there was a preferred time. And we can take this offline and do it, but I just wanted to put that out there, and I appreciate what you guys do and continue to be open and transparent and educating. So for what it's worth.
I had the pleasure and privilege to celebrate my 35th wedding anniversary over at the Carillon on the far east side of Aurora, doing a seminar like that for citizens as opposed to small business owners with Mark Armstrong. And he was a star. He was a celebrity. And Sarah and I enjoyed our evening immensely. You know, some people, they go out to dinner, they take their wife to a show. I take her to a property tax seminar by Mark Armstrong.
You're a true romantic, true romantic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you follow that up, Mark.
For most of you, that's going to cause let's call it a domestic tranquility issue. Not recommended, but in this case, it worked.
No, it was Sarah's idea. You can blame the wife. Okay, move on. I was informed that I passed the recorder section. I apologize to the recorder, but their report is on file. So if you have any questions on that, reach out to Ms. Wegman and she will be happy to answer your questions. Next up, Supervisor of Assessments, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you. My report begins on page 34. In the interest of brevity, I'll simply ask if there's any questions before moving on to the resolution, which starts on page 36.
Any questions? No.
Very good. Thank you. On the resolution on page 36, this is a resolution to create a new position of appraisal specialist in my office. Appraisal specialist is a position that exists in every Collier County Supervisor of Assessments office except Kane County. Kane County did have one prior to 1993, and it was eliminated. I'm not sure why. I was not in the office at that time. I didn't take office until 2006. But there have been several recent changes that actually compelled me to make this change. The first thing is the Property Tax Appeal Board is now moving all hearings on Kane County properties from right over here in Building C, where they had been, to Springfield. They are no longer leaving Springfield. Cook County has all their hearings in Cook County, but they're the only county afforded that. Given that Cook County is more than half of all PTAB cases, I can understand why they would be given a different consideration. But this case, we're going to have people going to Springfield, representing the county's interests, presenting evidence. We need someone who has an appraisal background to be able to do that, to negotiate with stakeholders on this, who will not only include taxpayers, but also taxing bodies. The second thing is an initiative that I was already planning on rolling out in 2024. But the PTAB move kind of compelled me to move a little bit earlier. We have nearly 8,000 exempt parcels in Kane County. Now, many of those certify annually that they are still exempt, but that certification is simply signing off on a form, and it would be what kids would call a pinky promise that yes, everything is good. The trouble is, we've learned in a number of cases that things are not always good and things are not always reported. Example is when I was in the Long County Board meeting that we experienced a little bit ago. I got an email in the middle from the General Counsel of the Illinois Department of Revenue informing me there had been changes to a parcel of property in Kane County that had been exempt from taxation. And that exempt status needs to be reviewed. So what I need is somebody who has experience in valuation and experience in doing mostly field work. So this would be not a position working mostly inside, but mostly working externally, having to go to Springfield, working around the county along those lines. A job description is attached. That job description was created in conjunction with Jamie Labrillo from the Department of Human Resources. We do have an amount on an appropriation listed of $60,000. I am not asking for a budget adjustment at this time. I understand the Finance Committee may want to revisit that, but at least for the fiscal year 2023, given that the year is half over already, and we had a couple of vacant positions that were not able to start till several months in the year, I believe I can cover this with the existing budget within the existing Supervisor of Assessments budget and would not need a budget adjustment. Nevertheless, if the county board is more comfortable with doing it with a budget adjustment, I'm happy to work with that too. I'd be happy to answer any questions about creating this new position.
Mr. Surges.
Mark, as any time I address you, I have to say thank you. You are arguably one of the most intelligent guys I've ever met, and I am so glad that you are on our team. With that said, two questions. The first one is, how many transactional are you estimating that this person is going to handle? And are you suggesting with those transactional, they have to go all the way to Springfield to do this every time? And then second question is, describe what would be an exempt status. Is that when a building is owned by a municipality or a government entity? Or are you specific to like churches or not-for-profits? What does that mean?
To answer your first question, I'd start with the list of number of parcels we have going to the Property Tax Appeal Board in a given year. Right now, we're at a very low end of that cycle, as we had a 19-year low in assessment complaints last year. As again, we're going into the general assessment year, so I do expect those to increase. But generally, the property tax appeal board numbers will cycle along with those. But there will still be several hundred parcels in any given year that need to be prepared to go to Springfield. That means we need to prepare a response. We need to prepare a valuation that can go to a hearing and have someone who can credibly present the evidence on behalf of the county. Or in the case of evidence presented that is persuasive, someone who can read that evidence and say, yes, we agree, and we'll sign an agreed order ahead of time. Ideally, we don't want to take everything all the way to the hearing just because we can. When someone files at the Property Tax Appeal Board, they are not appealing the decision so much as they're starting the process new. The legal term used is de novo, which is Latin, which means new. And a new hearing means they can appeal based on any reason, and they can appeal based on any evidence. It is not unusual for an attorney to file with the Board of Review and present no evidence whatsoever. And the Board of Review then has no alternative but to confirm the assessment. But then go to PTAB and actually hire an expert witness and go in and present an appraisal report that will be over 100 pages. Now, to understand that, you need somebody who actually understands how to read those reports, because they're generally written with a lot of insider terminology, and you need to know when you're reading a report that is a good valuation opinion and when you're reading a report that is simply made as instructed by the client. So in doing so, the person needs to understand that, but then needs to develop their own evidence. We can't just say their report is bad and therefore their appeal fails. A good
But quantitatively 2 a day.
Possibly, yes.
Okay. With hundreds of documents per.
Yes, they
hundreds
might.
of pages per.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize that. That
I was
had a
just for
simpler answer. I've never been accused of giving a short answer when a long one would do.
And then in terms of exempt, is this religious institutions? Is this government held properties? What's an exempt? Who
A
gets
property that is
status?
exempt, other than homestead exemptions, can come in several categories, all set out by Article 9, Section 6 of the Illinois Constitution. Generally, units of government, religious properties, agricultural associations, schools, and institutions of public charity. Regarding all of those, there are a variety of bases that exemption can be made. For instance, the school exemption must relieve the public schools of some sort of burden. So for instance, a K through 12 private school would qualify because school attendance is compulsory on those grades, but a preschool would not, nor a trade school would not, since the state is not required to provide those kinds of schools. For things like agricultural associations, it has to be not only ownership, but ownership and use. Same thing for religious. A good example is a church has a parsonage. If the parsonage is A, owned by the church, and B, the pastor is required as a condition of employment to reside in that parsonage, that would qualify for exemption. However, it is not unusual for churches to switch from a parsonage model to a housing allowance model. They still own the parsonage. Now they're using it for something else. Is that an exempt use or not? Perhaps, but we don't know by looking at it. And most of the time, these are not reported, not out of malice, not out of somebody trying to avoid taxes, but out of people not understanding that they're supposed to send me a registered letter saying they have changed the use of the property. For a property owned by the county, for instance, if the county leases any of the property to somebody, they are required under Illinois law to provide that lease to my office so I can determine whether the exempt use has been defeated. Same thing for the forest preserve districts. Same thing for municipalities. That's probably one of the areas where I have the greatest growth of where some field work is needed, because a lot of times I'm not getting those leases. I'm not getting the information. And again, I don't think it's malicious. I think it's ignorance and being unaware of what the statutory requirements are. So that means we have a significant amount of property that should be on the tax rolls that is not being picked up. Whenever we don't have that, what we're not having is governments getting less money. What we're going to have is taxpayers paying more money for the difference with higher tax rates on
Do
their
you
property.
anticipate this being a null budget? I'm not explaining that right. The
In other
cost for
words,
the
will you say-
individual is going to bring in that amount and it's going to be a null effect.
Possibly, certainly with when exempt property is brought back into the tax rolls, it can be that can be considered new construction under the property tax extension limitation law. So that certainly can offset it to a certain extent, provided the taxing bodies, particularly the county board who would fund this position, would agree to address it. So with looking at it, there's certainly some possibility for savings, but in general, the long-term benefit is lower tax rates, lower tax burdens on individuals because everybody's paying their own share. In general, I've yet to find someone who loves paying property taxes, but I generally find that people are willing to pay it if they believe the system is not rigged and giving benefit to others that they can't get themselves.
Agreed. My biggest concern is that I don't want people coming back saying, look at this county board attacking the churches and the religious institutions. On the other hand, by your very, testimony here, if the property in question is now a rental income and no longer a parsonage, are we really picking on a religious institution, or did the rules change or the situation change and it shouldn't be viewed like that?
The situation change is exactly what it is. So here's how I envision doing this. I don't envision running out with a big stick, yelling at people, sending them back due tax bills. Now, I'd have the authority to do that and go back and recover 3 years. Having said that, most of these people don't have the money to pay the 3 years in back taxes, and we would end up with prolonged litigation to deal with it. Instead, what we do is once we find out a property had a change of use, what we do is say, we notice there's a change of use under the property tax code. If you still think it should be exempt, file a new application. And then they file that new application that can be adjudged. If they don't file the new application, then it just goes back on the tax rolls. So they have a chance to go through a process and determine this. We're not going to do anything where we're sending people a bill, and if they don't pay it in 30 days, they're going to lose their property.
Perfect. Mark, you've always been fair and reasonable, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm satisfied, sir.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Regional Office of Education.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we have
Yeah, we have
I need a
We have
vote on
resolution.
that.
I got so engulfed in the conversation, I forgot we have to vote. My apologies. Going back to supervisor assessments, we didn't actually move on from that. Resolution authorizing hiring of appraisal specialists in the Office of Supervisor of Assessments. I need a motion and a second.
Gums will move.
Gums moves.
Surges.
Lewis seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Williams, Young,
Young, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
passes.
Now for the ROE.
Morning, Deanna Oliver, Assistant Regional Superintendent. With me today is Josh Axelson, our Coordinator of Alternative Programs. Just wanted to talk briefly about some of our alternative programs throughout the county that serve kids that are considered at risk of dropping out or at risk of not being as successful as they want to be in their school environment. The first program we have is a regional safe school program, and those are programs for kids that would otherwise be expelled from school. And so we have 5 of those locations within the school districts throughout the county. And those again are expulsion eligible or highly suspended students that just need a different place to be educated in an environment that includes a social emotional component along with their educational environment. And so in those programs, we have 2, one at the north and one at the south end of the county called Regional Work Experience Cooperative Ed programs. And in those programs, our kids that are 16 or older can do a work component with their regional safe school, in which they have a coach that kind of helps them to be more successful in the work environment, giving them those soft skills that they may need to be successful, and then whatever other items that they need. And that's funded through the Illinois State Board of Education. Alternative Learning Opportunity Programs is our second program. And those are, in education, we have a lot of acronyms, just as many of you do in your industries. We lovingly call them our ALOPs. We have 23 of these in the county. When I started in 2015, we had 2. So these are programs that Josh works really hard with the school district to say who are your kids that are really at risk of dropping out, and what kind of programs can we create that are unique to your school district. So they're located, those kids are always within their school district. They aren't bused to other school districts. Again, we have 23. They're customized with an agreement with the Illinois State Board of Education. The school districts work really hard to have a trauma-informed staff that includes also an SEL component, social emotional learning, SEL component for the students. And then the students all have a student success plan, and the students are co-writers of that success plan. So they get to be involved in what will help them to be successful. Within our ALOPs, we started in the last year receiving a grant, a competitive grant from ISB to create community partnership programs. And so we have a community intervention specialist, one in the north and one in the south, that works really closely with our ALOPs to say what kind of pro-social activities can we offer for kids, mental health referrals to community agencies. They address truancy concerns for the students. We also offer any credit recovery that the students may need, tutoring opportunities, support for new and expecting parents. So that again is new this year, and it has been very well received. We also try to do, and it's allowable within the grant to do wonderful mental health supports for our educators in those programs as well. And so we did a teacher appreciation day, and we're able to provide them lunch and a gift basket and some treatments that would make them, feel really good about, the work that they're doing. And then I will save this for a future report, but we're very proud. And I know many of you have heard the report about our relationship with the Juvenile Justice Center and the work that we're doing to educate the students at the JJC. And we're really excited to offer some new opportunities for the students this summer as far as summer programming. And, now that we've got, a little bit more flexibility with our healthcare concern with COVID being over, beginning this week, we're going to start, or next week, we'll start a class to help the kids learn to be DJs. So that's just one of many, but I'll feature that in another time. Sure. If you think you can get clearance over there.
I don't know.
Doubtful.
That's all.
All right. Any questions for the Regional Office of
question.
Education? Ms. Lewis.
Just real quick question. When youth leaves JJC, usually they go back to our school systems.
Okay.
And when they do that, what kind of support do we provide them so that they, because obviously there's a stigma because they're coming out of juvenile justice.
Right.
And depending on what their charges were, you have that going on. And also chances are they probably don't really want to come back in the school building. They're court ordered or, whatever, those kind of things. So what kind of things do we do to help them succeed?
Sure. So our principal is in contact with the students, and keep in mind, we serve 6 to 7 counties of kids depending on the situation. But when our students return back to their schools, there's a relationship between our building principal and the schools to make sure that there is that transition. In addition to that, under the TAOP grant and our truancy program, we hired a truancy intervention specialist that's assigned to the courtroom here in King County. And her job is specific to maintaining those kind of guardrails of getting the kids back. And we identified that that was a problem for a lot of our youth, is what's that experience like when they return back to school? And I am guilty of fighting pretty vigorously with the state on making sure that those records remain very confidential and that information is not shared amongst school staff that really don't need that information. And so that's, one of the things that I continue to fight with the state about.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sturgis.
So I think I'm going in my 5th year here with the county, and it just, when you think you know something, you realize how much you don't know. And I'm still confused with what the Regional Board of Education does compared to your district, Board of Education, and how y'all play together and stuff like that. I am active within the prison systems, and when I saw the JJC award and accolades come out, I was bowled over to see your participation in that and how that, because I think Anita, who's a sister in this cause, when somebody is released, it is all about the support system that they have available to them that determines the recidivism rate. And to see that you guys are involved there is key. I mean, it's a major component. I didn't realize that. You were on my list to give kudos to.
Oh, thank
you. You beat me in patting yourself on the back there, but it is so well deserved. And thank you so much for helping get them to that level. So, I mean, to be a model in the state and you're a cog in that system, I just think that speaks volumes. So
Thank you. We're very proud of the work, and we'll continue to advocate and be innovative.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Deanna, for being here. And I forgot your name. I'm sorry, sir.
Josh Axelson.
Josh Axelson. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Next up, Veterans Assistance Commission, Mr. Zimmerman.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief this morning. Our report, we remain historically busy and productive, but with being historically busy also results in historic benefits awards. You'll see on our report that we received our veterans received $481,000 in new benefits in the month of April, bringing the fiscal year to date total by the end of April to over $3 million in new benefits. When I started here, we would expect to bring that in a year, not half of a year. So those are very good figures. We also started this month, we started our Ride and Cane program, thanks to the ARPA funding we received, or the KDOT received for that, and began registering veterans for trips to their VA medical appointments. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the VAC? Mr. Sturgis.
I just have all sorts of statements today. Jake, in lieu of, or in view of this submarine situation, know that you have been utmost in mind, knowing that Jake's background is with the Coast Guard. And I think they have been top shelf in assisting with this. I might be mistaken on that, but I thought that's what I saw, and just thinking of you and what you do and appreciate it. So.
Thanks. I was proud to be a part of that outstanding organization.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you.
Other business, I know there, oh, did I miss something? Oh. I'm like, wait, what? Other business, there are some things that came up. I know there is a idea of an election commission that the county clerk also thought was an interesting idea. In the interest of time, though, we don't really have much of it to get into anything, but I do think it's something to follow up on, to get some initial research done on, and county would maybe want to go in the direction of. I don't know if Mr. Young, you would like to head that research, but we can figure that out. I think it's, especially since the clerk himself considered it something to look at.
I'll look into it. Yeah. And I was going to see if you wanted to look into it, but you asked me to it first.
No,
so-
we can have some inquiry made into the matter and
I'll
come
get
back with
Mark,
some information.
before I leave, I want to get Mark's information, and because there was a lot of things that he stated, different articles, and I'll get his information.
Yeah, I think he'll send everything to us after the meeting. Mr. Sturgis.
Jarrett, my question on this after what's transpired today is that there was a notion that at some level, this board might say, we are not interested in ever accepting outside monies, blah, 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 blah. With Mr. Cunningham's statements that he is independent of us, can we even make a resolution to that effect? Saying that we can't or won't allow monies in like that? Or do we overstep that as a county board for a office that has internal control?
For an office with internal control, we can't control that aspect. It would have to come from Springfield. Oh, is the mic? Yeah, this one's so
You have to get close.
low powered.
Yeah.
We got to turn these up, Blair. There we go. Yeah, see, that's a little better. I can hear myself now. Thank you.
I mean, I would just like.
I
that
think that's a
clear.
state-
I mean,
that's
I
a
don't
state
want us
issue.
running and using state attorney resources to pursue something to only learn that while we might want to pass something like that, he is not governed. Before we take any efforts, and if the state's attorney says, yes, you can do it, then pursue it. If they say you can't, it's over. But I think that fundamental understanding is needed.
Well, again.
Does that make
it's-
sense to you,
Yeah,
Bill?
and it's been put out there. We don't have control over offices in that manner. They can take in money from anyone they want. It would have to come from Springfield. That office is created by Springfield. There would have to be statutes put in place that say you can't take private money. So that really is something to take up with our state legislators, whether or not that's something we want as a legislative priority. That's a completely other discussion for a completely other committee, a completely different committee. But that being said, I know, Mr. Young, you had a couple resolutions. There was some interest in potentially getting consent from this committee to move them forward to executive, or at least ask Madam Chair if they could go to executive. With Mr. Cunningham's statements today, do you want some time to reflect on that? And do you still feel that the resolutions that you wanted to put forward would be relevant at this time, or do you need some time to kind of rethink them or anything like that?
I still think they're relevant. I mean, the antics from him were he's still going to get the money. He still wants the money, and the resolutions, we're not asking, we know that we cannot force him and we don't control his office, but the resolutions still are just requesting Tim to send it back. We're not demanding it. It's just a formal request. So
yeah.
I think they're still relevant. So I'd love to have them go through executive.
Yeah,
to get
they're
them-
not overstepping any internal controls or anything
Right.
like that. Given that they will be on the agenda next month in any case, if all else fails, I just wanted to take a consent vote from the committee if you would approve of allowing this to go to executive this month and then be at county board if it passes executive at the next county board. So
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have some objection, and I think that the objection is solely in the language, probably needs to be reworded after what transpired today.
Mhm.
I don't know if
Well,
Mr.
we can just take a consent vote. If we don't have a majority, it won't have that, at least that blessing. But Madam Chair would still be able, it'd be within her power to
Sure.
put it on the resolution or put it on the agenda for executive. Mr. Tepe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I object strenuously to these particular resolutions. I believe that they are taking into account the integrity of the county clerk. I think that is extremely inappropriate. If you want to do that, you can either file a lawsuit or you can go and work to remove them at the election department when the next election is there. But to question his integrity and to allow that to continue is, in my opinion, wrong.
Okay, we'll just take a quick roll call vote just to see if there is consent amongst the committee to pass it to executive if Madam Chair agrees.
Gums,
no.
Lewis,
no.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Tepe,
No.
Williams,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
passes with 3 noes,
Okay,
consensus.
And again, this is just a majority consent, but it's up to Madam Chair in any case, whether we agree with it or not. Otherwise, the resolutions will be on the agenda next month. We'll have those conversations and take our vote at that time.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Williams.
I'm seeing this for the first time today. I mean, I'm voting on sending it to the executive committee. I'm assuming there'll be some wordsmithing in here to some degree. This isn't in final form. I haven't even read it, to be honest with you. So
This is a draft that was produced with Mr. Young, had the state's attorney review it as well. And I think Madam Chair also had some changes in that. So
okay,
again, we don't even know it would be on the executive committee agenda and it may just be another month.
okay.
So, okay. Okay. That being said, no need for Juby.
I don't understand if you just voted to send this forward, that there's going to be changes made to it, because you're sending forward a document then that no one has actually seen. So I would be under the understanding that if, I mean, we have to ask the state's attorney, but if this is a document we're sending forward, this would be the document I would hope that would appear on the agenda.
So I think if there were any changes that were desired, it would have to come in the form of an amendment.
But it would go through as this document because you did not send this through pending future amendments.
Sure. Yeah, it was just a simple consent.
Okay, I'm just.
Yeah, so this is the
curious
resolution.
as
We're
to
not,
the
we're not
process.
making any changes to it at this time, but
Okay.
if it goes to executive, amendments can be made to
But
it
it will,
at
it will
that time.
look like this.
It will be this
So
resolution.
Rick, to your question, it will look like this document when it goes to executive, and then
Hmm.
if it gets a second, then they'll be able to make amendments to it.
Yeah,
Understood.
Okay,
but in between, there can be conversations had about certain types of changes to make. So that's more clear.
This is just to accelerate it through the committee process, our vote.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Intent,
Yeah.
yes.
So-
Is it just bring this to a head and get this done either way? I mean,
So, okay. That being said, we have no need for executive session. I need a request for unanimous consent to place the reports on file.
Williams moves for
Williams
unanimous.
moves. Any objection? Hearing none. Reports are placed on file. I need a motion to adjourn and a second as well.
Sturgis.